joining me today for Faithful Friday. Today we will be going over the book of Judges. So I hope you're ready. I hope you've read and you're ready to go. So first we're going to start by summarizing the book of Judges. So this recounts the period in Israel history between the death of Joshua and the rise of the monarchy. It describes how the Israelites repeatedly fell into cycles of sin, idolatry, oppression, repentance, and deliverance. God raised up judges, leaders such as Deborah, Gideon, and Samson, and others to deliver the Israelites from its enemies, including the Canaanites, the Midianites, and the Philistines. Despite God's continued mercy, Israel frequently turned away from him, leading to moral and spiritual decline. The book highlights Israel's need for righteous leadership, concluding with the reoccurring theme: in those days there were no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes, which that verse can be found in Judges 21:25. So in this time, there were no tangible king. God pretty much looked for it to be a theocracy, which a theocracy is a system of government where God himself is the ruler of Israel rather than a human king. In this period, God led his people through judges who acted as deliverers, military leaders, and spiritual guides, but not as kings. The Israelites were expected to follow God's laws and commandments, relying on his direct rule. Now, when reading this, it put me in the mind of today's time of how we have a president. And if we didn't have a president, what would we do? And we're relying on the full leading of God and the direction of God and the laws of God. And we fall into sin, and God is raising up people. Now, it's not exactly the same, but when reading this, my mind started to go to people that God did raise up in different areas to assist and help certain groups of people, like when he raised Martin Luther King up to kind of assist with peace and freedom of speech and bringing everyone together regardless of what race they were. So I just kind of thought about that when I saw that God intended for it to be a theocracy. However, when God is doing this, the children of Israel is doing that. So he wanted a theocracy. However, they wanted a king because this is what they're used to. This is what it is. It's like following the group instead of separating yourself and being different. They wanted what everybody else got. We want a king like everybody else. So this sets the tone for the book of Judges at this point. So, as I stated, several times they fell into sin of idolatry and oppression, and they turned around and repented once they fall into the sin, and they start feeling the repercussions of their actions, and then they turn and they call out to God. And God was merciful and still continued to give them grace. And he would raise up a judge to deliver them out of their sin and give them peace, not for a second, not for a day or 2 days, 3 days. It would be, they had peace for years, 40 years of peace. And they fall back into sin. And then he raised up another judge, and, they fall back again. And this was like a continued pattern that's happening in the book of Judges. Now, just to highlight some of the sins and different things that they were doing, some of it starts in Judges 17 and 18 with Micah. Now, Micah had a problem with idols. So he was idolizing things and putting things before God. So a man named Micah from the tribe of Ephraim stole. He was stealing as well. He stole 1,100 silver shekels from his own mother. But he later confessed and returned it. However, he still stole it. His mother dedicated 200 shekels of the silver to make a graven image and a molten image for Micah's house. So she contributed as well to the sin of idolatry. Micah set up his own private shrine, made an ephod, which is a priestly garment, a teraphim, which is a household god, and ordained one of his sons as a priest, all which were against God's commandments. In this part here, my old pastor, God rest her soul, she would always say, I'm not going to put people in position. And my current pastor say the same thing, if God has not told them to do so. And this right here reminded me of that. It said God was against all of it. So he didn't tell him to make his son a priest. So that's telling me that God will tell whoever is over you or whoever it is that's supposed to put you into position, God will tell them when to do it. They can't just, oh, I like them, I'm going to just go ahead and do it for them. Because God won't be in it. He won't be pleased with it. And here, Micah was just in his own flesh doing what he wanted to do. It was his son, so he ordained him to be a priest. And that's not what God wanted. Micah hires a Levite as his priest. So this is another highlight that I made in chapter 17, verses 7 through 13. A young Levite from Bethlehem, Judah, traveled to Micah's house. Micah hired the Levite to serve as his personal priest, believing this would bring him God's blessing. However, Levites were supposed to serve in God's tabernacle, not in his private home. So there again, he's kind of going against what God is saying. Instead of serving in God's tabernacle, you're doing what pleases you, pretty much. You're doing what pleases you. So the next highlight I made was the tribe of Dan steals Micah's idol and priest. So this can be found in Judges 18, and this is chapter 1 through 26. The Danites, which is the tribe of Dan, were searching for land because they had not fully received their inheritance. They sent spies who discovered Micah's shrine and the Levite priests. Later, 600 Danite warriors returned, stole Micah's idol, and persuaded the Levite priests to join them instead. Micah tried to stop them, but they outnumbered him, and he was forced to give up his idol and priests. So, see, for one, he never should have had the priest in his home. If anything, the priest should have been at the tabernacle. He never should have had the idol to begin with. That was something that was against God, and he shouldn't have had the idol at all. So doing things outside of the will of God, God does not have to come to your rescue or keep a covering over you. That's why it's important to be in the will of God. So when these people came, anything, it could have been worse than them just taking the idols and the priests. They could have killed him or anything. He was really outside of the will of God. So it really unless God gave mercy on him, his life could have been taken. So the Danites established idolatry in their new city. This is found in Judges 18, verses 27 through 31. The Danites conquered. Hey, 1 minute, please. Hey, shut up. Okay, so they conquered Laish. I think that's the Laish. Laish. Renamed it Dan and set up Micah's idols as their official gods. This idolatry continued for generations, showing Israel deep spiritual corruption. So this is just some of the things that were going on to how they were falling into sin, into idolatry and all of these different things that they were doing. This is just one occurrence that happened with Micah. Now, moving right along, we're going to talk about the atrocity against the Levites' concubine and civil war. So I just got kind of like bullet points here that's going to discuss or talk about it. So this is found in Judges 19. A Levite from Ephraim had a concubine who left him and returned to her father's house in Bethlehem, Judah. After 4 months, the Levite went to retrieve her and was hospitably received by her father. After much delay, the Levite and his concubine finally left, traveling late in the day. They arrived at Gidba, a city of the Benjamites, and an old man offered them shelter for the night. Okay. The wickedness in Gidba. The men of Gidba, described as son of Baal, surrounded the old man's house and demanded to abuse the Levite. This is kind of similar to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And that was in Genesis chapter 19. The old man and the Levite instead offered the concubine to them. The men of Gidba abused her all night, and in the morning she collapsed at the doorstep. When the Levite found her in the morning, he coldly said, "Up and let us be going." But she was already dead. The Levite then cut her body into 12 pieces and sent them to the 12 tribes of Israel as a call to action. So here we see they are wicked. They are wicked. They abused the lady until they killed her. And then I guess he wanted to do something that was really, that was going to grab their attention, grab somebody's attention. So he cut her body up into 12 pieces and sent them to the 12 tribes to get their attention that something needs to be done about this. This is what is happening. So Israel responds in the war against Benjamin. The other 11 tribes of Israel gathered at Mizpah and demanded justice. The tribe of Benjamin refused to surrender the guilty men of Gidba, choosing instead to defend them. This led to a civil war where Israel fought against Benjamin. So these people were so wicked, they took up for the men and what they did. They stood behind it. So it caused a whole war with that occurrence. So the battles between Israel and Benjamin. The first battle, Benjamin defeated Israel, killing 22,000 men. The second battle, Benjamin again won. killing 18,000 men. The third battle, Israel used a battle strategy, setting an ambush and destroying Gibeah. By the end of the war, only 600 Benjamite men survived, having fled to the rock of Rimmon. The aftermath and the survival of Benjamin. Israel mourned the near destruction of an entire tribe. To preserve Benjamin, they found wives for the 600 survivors by destroying Jabesh Gilead. Jabesh Gilead, except for 400 virgin women who were given to the Benjamites, allowing the Benjamites to capture wives during a festival in Shiloh. So these are some of the things that were occurring, that were seen, that I wanted to do some bullet points and bring out. So the significance of the story was moral corruption. The horrific events in Gibeah mirror Sodom and Gomorrah. Justice turned into destruction. Seeking justice led to near genocide of a tribe, and the failure of theocracy. Israel lack of a king, resulting in anarchy and brutality. So they kind of had constant cycles of sin. And one of the things I wanted to point out is this. In Judges 2, chapter 2, verses 11 through 13, the Israelites turned away from God and engaged in idolatry, worshiping false gods of the surrounding nations. Second, servitude. As a result of their obedience, God allowed them to be oppressed by enemy nations such as the Moabites, the Midianites, and the Philistines, and the Canaanites. This is in chapter 2, 14, 15. Supplication. In their suffering, the Israelites cried out to God for deliverance and repenting of their sins. This is in chapters 3, verses 9 and verses 15. Salvation. God raised up judges, deliverers, to rescue them from oppression and restore peace. This starts in chapter 2, verses 16. And then the silence and rest. After the judges' victory, Israel experienced a period of peace and faithfulness to God. But once the judge died, they fell back into sin, restarting the cycle, as I stated. And this is in chapters 2, verses 18 through 19. Now, one of the main points, that's why I wanted to get through that kind of quickly. I wanted to speak about the 12 judges. Now, I highlighted a few judges. The second judge, the fourth judge, the fifth judge, and the very last judge, which is the famous story of Samson, which is the 12th judge of Israel. However, it was 12 judges, and the first one was Othniel. I hope I'm saying that right. Othniel. Othniel. I think that's how you pronounce it. These names, really. Othniel. So he delivered Israel from the oppression of the Cushan. I can't even say it, really. And my eyes is bothering me. I can't. It's Rishatham. All I know is Cushan and whatever that is. Rishatham, I believe so. Mesopotamia, king of Mesopotamia. So this can be found in Judges 3, 9 through 11. And that will speak to the reign of Othniel as being the first judge. Ehud was the second judge in Israel. He was left-handed. He was the left-handed judge who assassinated Eglon, the king of Moab, and freed Israel from the Moabite rule. This is in chapters 3, 12 through 30. He is one of the judges that I wanted to highlight and give a little background of his story. But I'll go quickly through all of them and just give a quick synopsis, and then I'll go into the ones that I highlighted. The third judge is Shamgar. He defeated 600 Philistines with an ox god. And that's in Judges 3 and 31. Deborah, along with Barak, a prophetess who led Israel to victory against Jabin, king of Canaan, and his commander Sisera. This is in Judges 4 and 5. Gideon, which is also highlighted. And I think did I highlight Deborah? Yes, Deborah is highlighted and Gideon is highlighted as well. Gideon defeated the Midianites with only 300 men by trusting in God's power. Tola, which is the sixth judge, judged Israel for 23 years, but little is recorded about them. So it wasn't really much to add. They just reigned for those 23 years. Jair, a judge who ruled for 22 years, known for having 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys. Japhat defeated the Ammonites, but is mostly remembered for his rash vow that led to the sacrifice of his daughter. Ibzan judged Israel, which he's the ninth, for 7 years, had 30 sons and 30 daughters. The 10th judge was Elon. He ruled for 10 years, but little was recorded about him as well. Abdon, he was the 11th judge. He judged for 8 years, had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys. And then last but not least, the 12th judge, which was Samson, which is one of the most famous judges and one of the well-known stories in the book of Judges. It's a lot to tell in the book of Judges. However, the story of Samson stands out in the book of Judges. He's known for his supernatural strength, and he fought the Philistines and ultimately died while destroying their temple. So that's a quick synopsis of, I don't know why I can't talk tonight. My allergies and everything is bothering me, but I was going to make sure I got on here and did this book. I've been going back and forth over it all week long because I'm a little further ahead and I'm in Samuel, and I've been had these notes, so that's why I'm going back looking at them, and just forgive me. Y'all done been going through quite a bit just on today alone, so just bear with me. But I know that this was something that I wanted to bring out about these individuals in the book of Judges. This was one of the main things that I wanted to bring attention to. So the first judge that I highlighted, I'm just going to give some background information on them in more detail than what I gave, but I did want to mention all 12 to give some kind of information on them. So the first one that I'm speaking on is Ehud. He was the second judge. So after the death of Othniel, which was the first judge of Israel, the people once again turned away from God and fell into sin. As a result, God allowed them to be oppressed by Eglon, the king of Moab, who along with the Moabites and the Amalekites conquered Israel and ruled over them for 18 years. The Israelites suffered under his heavy rule, cried out to God for deliverance, and God raised up Ehud, the second judge of Israel. Ehud was from the tribe of Benjamin, and one of his most notable characteristics was that he was left-handed. This was significant because most warriors were right-handed, and weapons were typically carried on the left side of the body for easy access with the right hand. However, Ehud's left-handedness allowed him to conceal a weapon in a way that no one expected. So I highlighted this particular judge because it seemed as if he had a flaw. However, this thing that he feels is a flaw, or it seems to be a flaw, is going to deliver the people from Israel. And it's pretty much how we look at things and how things are today. You may look at certain things and feel that you can't be used by God in what he's calling you to do. One with me, I feel that it's somebody better that can explain this and do this stuff, and I really didn't want to get on here. I feel that I don't have the right speaking voice and things. I have like a southern drawl, which I'm not from the South or nothing, I'm from here, but everybody say that, and when I hear myself, I don't like the way I sound. So it was pretty much like, why can't you just get somebody else so I can read the Bible and do my notes and do all of this myself? And it don't help when you don't have a large audience or whatever. The enemy is speaking to you and saying all of these different things to kind of discourage you at the same time. You would think this characteristic or something about you is a flaw. However, God can take whatever flaw you think you have and use it to deliver and set people free. So regardless of how I feel that my voice is sounding, it's somebody that needs to hear the word of God. And I liken that to my own story, and that's why I wanted to highlight this particular judge, because something that seemed to be a flaw because all the other warriors is right-handed, and then here he come and he's left-handed. It's the same thing. People can articulate words very well and have a gift of gab and can speak very well. However, they can speak and do all of those things, but you can't look or say that you can't do the exact same thing. God can take what you have and make something out of it. And that's what he did in this story. Reading on and continuing on with his story, he used that particular so-called flaw, and it helped deliver the children of Israel and give them peace. Now, I'll just finish it because I know you guys read this book, but I'm just going to go ahead and go through it anyway so you can get a understanding of what he did that helped give this peace to the children of Israel. So what he did is to gain access to King Eglon. Ehud devised a clever plan. The Israelites were required to bring tribute payments to their Moabite oppressors. So Ehud had chosen to deliver the tribe to King of Eglon. Before going, he crafted a double-edged dagger about a cubic foot long and strapped it to his right thigh under his clothing, a place where the Moabite guards would not think to check since they expected weapons to be on the left side. When Ehud presented the tribe to King Eglon, he observed that Eglon was an extremely fat man. So after delivering the tribe, Ehud told the king that he had a secret message for him. Intrigued, Eglon dismissed all of his attendants, leaving him alone with Ehud in his private upper chamber. So as Ehud approached the king, he said, "I have a message from God for you." When Eglon leaned in to hear the message, Ehud quickly drew the dagger from his right thigh and thrust it into Eglon's belly. Because Eglon was so obese, the blade sank completely into his flesh, and even the handle was swallowed up by his fat. The Bible says that his bowels discharged, indicating a gruesome and fatal wound. Ehud quickly slipped away, locking the door behind him. Eglon's servants, thinking he was using the restroom, waited outside for a long time, but by the time they realized something was wrong and unlocked the door, their king was already dead. That short time of where they was thinking he went to the bathroom, that delayed Ehud to escape. So upon his return to Israel, Ehud blew the trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, rallying the Israelites for battle. He led them to seize the fords of the Jordan River, cutting off the Moabites' escape. The Israelites took on the boldness of their leader. So this was the next part that I wanted to bring out. They took on the boldness once they saw the judge that was in place and the things that he had done, and he's blowing the trumpet for war, and he's having faith and thinking that they can conquer and take on their enemies, the Moabites. The children of Israel started to take on that same vision. It's like in today, when you fall in line, when the person or the leader or the shepherd over the church home that you go to have a vision, you are supposed to fall in line with that same vision, that same faith, that same, faith in whatever it is, or whatever. You get in alignment pretty much with what is going on. That stood out to me in here, and that showed me that's how they were able to kill the 10,000 Moabite soldiers. Is that they all at one point got on one accord. When he came and he called the rest of them, like, come on. Like, we ready to go to war, we ready. They didn't sit and start thinking. You know how the children of Israel do. They'll wander around for sure. They did it for 40 years. So they'll start doing their own thing. But in this right here, reading this in the Bible, I'm just paraphrasing it because these are my notes. But in the Bible, it still states along these lines of where they aligned themselves with Ehud and fought the war. It was no questioning. It was no nothing. They fell right in line and listened to what was being said, and they did just that, and God blessed them to be able to kill their enemies, the 10,000 Moabites. So, Moab was subdued, and Israel enjoyed peace for 80 years. So, there again, just wanted to emphasize, because of their obedience to the man of God that was over them, which was Ehud, when he came and said, come on, when he blew the trumpet and said, come on, they came. They fell in line with the vision, with whatever was going on. At this particular time, it wasn't really a vision, it was a mission. Their mission was to defeat the Moabites. So, whatever it was, they came and fell right in line with it, and they did just that. And for their obedience, they were able to kill their enemy and enjoy peace for 80 years. So, they received 80 years of peace under Ehud. That was the second judge. Okay, the next judge that I highlighted was Deborah. I highlighted her for one because she was a woman, first and foremost. And she was one of the judges that God used, because so many times I see different things on YouTube of where it make it seem as if women was nothing and that they just needed to keep their mouths closed, and they try to make it seem like that's how it is today. But God will use whatever willing vessel that he needs to use to get his word out, to get done what he needs done. And during this time, I'm not sure if it wasn't a man that he could raise up, but he used a woman, and he used a prophetess in this time to help deliver the children of Israel. So Deborah was the fourth judge of Israel and the only female judge mentioned in the Bible. She was also a prophetess chosen by God to lead Israel during the time of oppression under the Canaanite king Jabin, whose commander Sisera had a mighty army with 900 iron chariots. The Israelites suffered under his rule for 20 years, and in their distress, they cried out to God for deliverance. Okay. So Deborah, who held court under a palm tree in the hill country of Ephraim, summoned Barak, a military leader, and instructed him that God commanded him to take 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun to Mount Tabor, where God would deliver Sisera's army into his hands. However, Barak hesitated and insisted that Deborah go with him into battle. Now, I guess Barak was kind of hesitant about it. I don't know. I guess I can't say that he didn't believe Deborah because he was going to do it, but that hesitation showed a little doubting or something there, the reason why he wanted her to go. So because of his reluctance, Deborah prophesied that the victory would come, but Sisera himself would fall at the hands of a woman instead of Barak. Okay, so as prophesied, Barak and his forces attacked, and the Lord caused confusion in Sisera's army. So the Canaanite troops were utterly defeated, and Sisera fled on foot. He sought refuge in the tent of Jael and the wife of Heber the Kenite. She welcomed him, made him milk to drink, and let him rest. However, as he slept, Jael took a tent peg and drove it through his temple, killing him. When Barak arrived, she showed him Sisera's dead body, fulfilling Deborah's prophecy. Following this victory, Deborah and Barak sang a song of praise to God, recounting his deliverance. Under Deborah's leadership, Israel enjoyed 40 years of peace. She stands as a symbol of faith, courage, and obedience, showing that God can use anyone, a male or female, to fulfill his divine purpose. The same thing that I pretty much said. So during Deborah's reign, they received 40 years of peace. What also stood out to me in here is when Barak hesitated. When he did that hesitation, Deborah then came back and prophesied that he wouldn't die at the hands of Barak, that he was going to die at the hands of a woman. So sometimes I feel like, or this part of this story made me think of when you're not doing, or you're not going to do what God will have you to do, he'll give it to somebody else to do. He's not going to continue to keep going back and forth with you. He'll just have somebody else to do it. Or if you see that you're wavering in something and you're not fully trusting in him, then, and it's something of importance, he'll raise up somebody else to take care of that, because he may not be able to entrust you with it. So that's pretty much how I looked at that portion of that when it stated that Barak was kind of hesitant when Deborah told him. The next judge that I highlighted was Gideon. Now Gideon, this to me, Gideon is the most highlighted judge out of them all to me. I know Samson, and the story of Samson is the story that is highlighted and that's always told. But for me, it was Gideon, which was the fifth judge. So, in the days of Gideon, Israel had turned away from God. And as a result, they fell in the hand of the Midianites, who cruelly oppressed them for 7 years. The Midianites, along with the Amalekites and other eastern peoples, would invade Israel like a swarm of locusts, destroying crops and livestock, leaving the Israelites starving and fearful. The people cried out to God for help, and in his mercy, he chose Gideon, an unlikely hero, to deliver them. Now, an unlikely hero, trying to get to where I had it. Okay. An unlikely hero is what Gideon was pretty much called, because he was fearful, doubtful, and came from a weak family. Yet God chose him to deliver Israel from the Midianites. Okay. Now, here, this is a story that I can say that it's pretty much like the underdog or something like that that you can call. Gideon didn't think much of himself, and he really didn't think that he could do what God was calling for him to do. However, give me 1 second. I done dropped all of my papers. Okay. He really didn't think that he could do what God was calling him to do. Deliver the people from oppression and the things that they were in was pretty much ludicrous to Gideon. He was fearful. He didn't come from the right family. All of these different things. He had all these different odds and different things stacked against him. But with God, anything is possible. And sometimes we look at ourselves that way, of that, God, I can't do this, and I shouldn't be doing this, and I can't do this or that. But God is saying that you can, and God is calling you to do it. And you're giving him all of these excuses why you can't do it, and God is telling you that you can. And I found myself in this portion of this particular book in the book of Judges. And that's why Gideon stood out to me, because I'm the exact same way. Like I said, even with this, I didn't want to do it, or I felt that it wasn't that I didn't want to do it, because I do love reading the Bible now and studying it, not just reading it to read a chapter or two just to say that I've read it, but I actually study it and try to learn the word and apply it to my everyday life and to different scenarios and testimonies and different things, and God give me revelation of his word. So it's not that I don't like reading the word, but I don't feel that I'm the person to be explaining it and telling someone else about it. It's someone else fit to be able to do it. But yet God is calling me to do it. So out of obedience, I do what God has told me to do. And just in the past week or so, my niece told me that she watches. A lady from the church that, a sister from the church, she watches. So it pretty much gave me encouragement, a lot of encouragement, whether it's just one person looking at it. I'm not doing this in vain, and I'm doing what God has called me to do. And that's why this particular judge stood out to me, because I may not have the same flaws as he, but when God called me to do something, I do the exact same thing. I get to telling him all of these different things of why I'm not qualified to do it. But if he's calling you to do something, you must be qualified, or he's going to qualify you. So he was an unlikely hero. However, he was called to deliver the children of Israel. So Gideon, a humble and hesitant man, was threshing wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites when the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor." Gideon, however, doubted, asking why Israel was suffering if God was truly with them. The Lord assured him that he had chosen him to save Israel. Still uncertain, Gideon asked for a sign. Same with me. With this, at one point I was just like, I'm not doing it no more. I don't feel like doing my hair. I don't ever really, it'd be like, no, maybe I didn't hear right, and I was just doing this myself or whatever. But I would feel so guilty and so bad when I didn't do it. And I could just hear like, this is what I'm telling you to do. Like, you heard me, and you know when you've heard and you just trying to make an excuse or whatever. And at one point I was just like, I just got to be obedient and do what God is calling me to do. But I will be going through the same thing, like, God, if you want me to really do this, then, you know, somebody gonna tell me that I'm supposed to do it. And all of this, you will do this stuff back and forth with God or whatever, and you know, I have enough sense to know to just be obedient to what God is telling me to do. I had to put past the way that I feel about something, because it's not about how you feel. It's about what God is calling you to do, to be able to be helpful in the body of Christ. And everything that we do is to tell somebody else about God, and for somebody else to be saved and join the body of Christ. So with that being said, Gideon, he's now going back and forth with God, and he want God to prove different stuff. Like, he's going back and forth, like, if this is you, then you gonna have to give me a sign. So he prepared an offering of meat and bread, and the angel of the Lord touched it with his staff, causing fire to consume it before vanishing. So God did that first one. Like, okay, so now you know that it's me, so come on. and do it. Okay, I'm back. I'm Lord. Okay. So where was I? Even after this, Gideon struggled with doubt. Even after God did the first act, consumed up the sacrifice that he gave. That night, God instructed him to tear down his father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Gideon obeyed, but he did it at night out of fear. Now, God told me to get on here and do this, but I never told anybody that I was on here doing it because I didn't think that I was explaining it right or whatever. I don't know. I just wasn't doing it. So, at one point, God said, start sending it out. Share the link and start sending it to different people. For one, it's going to help you be thankful. God named this Faithful Friday and not just, because it's an F and then, Faithful Friday, the little jingle like how they do Taco Tuesday and all of that different thing. But God said that because he wants me to be faithful in what he's asking me to do. Being here to do this for Friday. So, I'm saying all of this to say, God will sometimes, I done lost my train of thought, y'all. I done cut this video off and on so many different times, and I'm just thinking about how I'm going to have to splice and cut this video, and I hate doing it because it usually just run all the way through and I do it and be done with it. But he's coming in here jumping up in my lap and I'm constantly clicking it off and cutting it on and all of this different stuff, and it just made me lose my train of thought on what I was talking about. Oh, he told Gideon to do it, and Gideon was obedient, but Gideon did it at night out of fear. So he did it at night out of fear. So he did what God said and was being obedient, but he did it at night out of fear. And what I was basically saying is that I did what God was telling me to do, but out of fear, I really wasn't telling anybody, or because I thought still that I shouldn't be doing it, I wasn't telling anybody that I was doing it. But God said, do it so you'll have some accountability. People will know, and you need to be on your post because people is going to be watching and this and that, because I will be like, God, nobody ain't looking at it no way, so why am I doing it? Especially if I got sick and all of that stuff, and I would just be thinking it in my mind. I wouldn't let it come out my mouth or whatever, but I definitely was thinking it. And that's why I'm saying this particular judge really resonated with me so much, because this is how I was doing about this with the Faithful Friday. I was doing exactly what how this judge was doing and thinking. I was doing stuff out of obedience, but it was still that, no, I'm still kind of fearful and this and that, instead of fully trusting God and doing what God has told me to do. So when the townspeople discovered it, they wanted to kill him. But his father, Joash, defended him, saying, if Baal is a god, let him defend himself. From then on, Gideon was called Jerubbaal, meaning let Baal contend with him. Soon the Midianites and their allies gathered for war. And Gideon, filled with the Spirit of the Lord, blew the trumpet to summon Israel warriors. But still uncertain, he asked God for another sign twice. Now first he placed a fleece of wool on the threshing floor, asking God to make the fleece wet with dew while the ground remained dry. God did it. Still unsure, Gideon asked for the opposite, the fleece dry and the ground wet. Again, God granted what he asked. With faith strengthened, Gideon gathered 32,000 men to fight. Now, his faith strengthened, but you see it said that it just strengthened. He went and gathered 32,000 men. So Gideon wanted to make sure that he won the war. So he had faith, but it was still something there in Gideon to where he still did not fully trust what God was saying. Now, on here, before I started doing this, before I started doing the Faithful Friday or anything, God showed me my subscribers on YouTube. And it was like rolling numbers. The numbers were just going up and up like real fast. Like the numbers were spinning and going up and up and up. Now at the time I wasn't even doing anything that really was of God. I was still really, God was dealing with me, but I was still in a backsliding position. I was still doing other things and just had like a regular YouTube page or whatever. I wasn't really doing anything, but I had started to read and I was starting to, pray and these different things, and God showed me that. However, I didn't know what I was going to be doing. I thought it was going to be what I was doing on my page at the time. I had my kids on there. Mookie was the green screen baby and all of that different stuff. So I really didn't know what he was talking about. But God showed me that, showed me those numbers rolling and rolling. However, after every video I do, I lose subscribers. Now, I was gaining subscribers like daily. I was getting a couple of hundred subscribers to where I went from 27 subscribers almost up to 5,000 subscribers within a matter of like a few months. When I was putting my son and he was doing green screening and stuff on those shorts or whatever. You can see him. It's a whole bunch of shorts where he's laughing and reacting to certain videos and things like that. Now it's like I should be trusting God. This is when he's wetting the fleece and drying the ground and doing all of this different stuff for me, because he pretty much showed me that to let me know that that's what he's going to do. But I have to trust him and have faith and believe what he showed me is going to come to pass. However, doubt creeps in every time I upload a video. It's like I'm losing subscribers instead of gaining them. Every time it's like I'm losing subscribers and I'm not gaining any subscribers. I was right at getting 5,000 subscribers and it was like they just started rolling back after that. And it's like ever since I started doing the Faithful Fridays and this different stuff on my page, it's like my subscribers are going down. And I really should have faith in God and not waver back and forth due to what I'm seeing in the natural. Faith is not by what you see. So there again, I liken that situation to what he was doing here. I mean, he stayed, fearful. So out of fear, he made sure that he did something to where he was going to win the war, where he was going to ensure he won the war. So he got 32,000 men. But God told him the army was too large, lest Israel boast in their own strength. See, God didn't want it to be his own strength. And the same thing with this. God is going to grow it the way that he wants to grow it, which I'm talking about the page and the subscribers, the way that he wants, so I'll know that it's him that did it and not by me, not by what I'm doing. but by what he showed me, the vision that he showed me and what he said. So, with that being said, God instructed Gideon to send home those who were fearful. So 22,000 of the men left. Now it was only 30, it was 30, well, I'm not going to say only, it was 32,000. And he sent home 22,000. So how many of that is left? 10. So still God said it was too many. The 10,000 was too many. He told Gideon to take the men to the water and observe how they drink it. So those who lapped the water like a dog was chosen. I'm back. So he said the ones who lapped the water like a dog were chosen, while those who knelt to drink were sent home. So once that little separation happened, he ended up with only 300 men. That night, God told Gideon to spy on the Midianite camp. There, he overheard a Midianite soldier telling a dream about a barley loaf tumbling into the Midianite camp, overturning a tent. Another soldier interrupted it, saying, "This is the sword of Gideon. God has given Midian into his hands." Strengthened Gideon, returning and divided his 300 men into 3 groups. Each man was given a trumpet and an empty jar and a torch inside the jar. Now, this part here don't make sense. First, you strip me down from 32,000 men down to 300. So that's like, I can get slaughtered with just having this amount of men. Now, I'm breaking them into 3 groups, and I'm giving them a trumpet, an empty jar, and a torch inside a jar. That's where the faith had to come in. And I liken this to where I'm seeing the numbers, they going down and down. This is what I'm seeing. So they seeing this, and this is like, this ain't no winning ticket right here. I don't know how we about to win or what's about to go on with this tactic, strategy. So at midnight, they surrounded the Midianite camp. At Gideon's signal, they blew the trumpets, smashed the jars, and held up the torches, shouting, "The sword of the Lord of Gideon." The Midianites awoke in panic, and in the confusion they turned on one another with their own swords. Those who fled were pursued and slaughtered by the Israelites. The mighty Midianite army was defeated without Israel even striking a blow. Now, this part of the story, I thought about. Currently, I have a situation where I need God to step in because I've been nice to this particular person and they're trying to take advantage of that kindness and niceness. And I could have reacted a certain way, but I'm not reacting. Now here, they had to trust in God, and when they were obedient to God, God showed up. They didn't have to do nothing. God fought their battle. And I went to God and I prayed about my situation. I was very upset, and I just let God know that I was very upset. God told me to pray for the person. I poured out my heart and told him everything of what the person did. And God said, pray for him. So out of obedience, and I told God, out of obedience, because my heart is not feeling this, but I'm going to say it, keep saying it out of obedience until my heart line up with what's coming out of my mouth. And I do it out of obedience. But God showed up. I don't have to do nothing. I didn't do nothing. And God showed up for me in that situation. I didn't have to physically do anything or step in or to fight or do anything of what I wanted to do. I didn't do anything. God stepped in and handled the situation for me and took care of the whole entire situation. So what they thought that they were getting away with, they really didn't get away with it. So that portion right there is what I thought about. They were obedient, and that's the key. Being obedient to what God is saying do puts you in the will of God. Disobedience takes you out of the will of God. But when you are obedient, you are in the will of God. And if you're in the will of God, God is going to protect you. God is going to lead you, guide you. And most importantly, He's going to fight your battle. Whatever obstacle or anything that's in your way, He's going to move it out of your way. Or He's going to turn it around for your good. So this part just stood out to me with my own situation, as I stated. With my situation and what I was going through and how God stood up for me and I didn't have to do anything. These people, they woke up and got to fighting themselves. They were in confusion and all of this and got up and got to fighting themselves. So God broke it down to only 300 people and gave him a strategy. Gave him something that would seem crazy to somebody. And I think I just said this last week in the book of Joshua. God continues to do that. He'll take something that seems foolish or something that you wouldn't even think of doing. Yeah, about with the wall of Jericho and them marching around it and all of that. He did it again here. Had them to blow the trumpet and do all of that. And they didn't have to lift a finger or do anything. They just killed themselves. But God always wants you to know that He's the one that's deserving of the glory, the honor, the testimony is His to have. And that's why He stripped him from those 32,000. Because they could have went in and just destroyed him with the 32,000 people. And they would have thought that was by their own doing. But God wanted to show it was not by their doing, it was by Him. So He gave them a small number to where they could have been defeated and had them to do something that just seems silly. But yet, they did what they came to do. They succeeded. So after this victory, Israel wanted to make Gideon king, but he refused, saying, "The Lord shall rule over you." However, he made a golden ephod from the spoils of war, which later became a snare to Israel, leading them into idolatry. Gideon judged Israel for 40 years, bringing peace to the land. But after his death, the Israelites again turned away from God, forgetting the one who had delivered them. Gideon's story is one of faith, doubt, and a divine power. Despite his fears, God used him to show that victory does not come from the human strength, but through the trust in our God Almighty. So, last but not least, you guys, is the story of Samson that I wanted to highlight. And everybody know the story of Samson, so I've kind of made this pretty short. Samson was the 12th and final judge of Israel in the book of Judges. And his story is found in Judges 13 through 16, where he served as a judge for 20 years before his fall and death. Samson was one of the most renowned judges of Israel, was a man chosen by God before birth, set apart as a Nazarite with immense strength granted by God. His power lay in his uncut hair, a symbol of his covenant with God. Throughout his life, he waged war against the Philistines who oppressed Israel, defeating them with supernatural might, once even slaying 1,000 men with a jawbone of a donkey. However, Samson had a weakness for Philistine women, which led to his downfall. Now, this story pretty much can relate to any story with a person who's yoked up with an individual that they should not be with. And God is showing you the red flags and you're seeing it. And God is telling you to leave this person alone. But you've got intertwined with this person. You have been intimate with this person. So you may have a soul tie with the individual or whatever it is. And it's hard for you to leave the person alone. So you continuously be in disobedience to what God is asking. And time again in this story, God would show him that Delilah, for one, he shouldn't have been messing with the Philistine woman. And it's the same thing if you're unequally yoked with a person. If they're not a believer of Christ, you're going in two different directions. So how is it going to work? Here, he wasn't even supposed to be dealing with the Philistine woman, but yet he was. These were the people that was oppressing the children of Israel. He was ordained to fight against these people and be the people that was going to free the children of Israel from under the thumb of the Philistines. But yet you're dancing with the devil pretty much. You're talking to their women. Like it don't make sense. And you don't think that they're going to plot on you? So, I know everybody know this story. So, to kind of make a long story short with this, he fell in love with Delilah, who was bribed by the Philistine leaders to discover the secret of his strength. 3 times she attempted to coach him into telling the truth. But he was deceiving her. See, he knew. But see, he teeter-totted too much with the enemy. And you can't walk a thin line. You have to be hot or you're going to be cold. You can't teeter-totter in the middle. Because the longer you teeter-totter, it's just like if water is sitting, it's going to get cooler as it sit out. So as long as you teeter-totter on that line sitting out, you're not going to get warmer. You're going to get cooler. So that's pretty much what happened here. She kept on until she wore him down. Finally, with her being persistent, he revealed that his strength came from his unshaven hair. So while he slept, Delilah had his locks cut off, and the Spirit of the Lord left him. Now, how many times have God told you time and time again? So then he'll start letting that person break your heart, do different things, cheat on you, whatever the case may be. It'll seem like everything is just crumbling and falling down around you. Because he done gave you time and time again of red flags. He'll be done told you through different people. Your friends may come and tell you. Your own pastor may come and tell you to leave these people alone or whatever, and you won't do it. So at some point, God will just take his hands off and let you experience hurt. And this is what happened. He told about his hair. Now, before this, he was getting red flags because it said 3 times before this. Now, What I didn't understand is why he didn't know that she was plotting against him. One of the times he said if his hands was bound up. So you wake up to the Philistines coming in to attack you and your hands is bound up. Who did you tell your hands was bound up? You told Delilah. So that's also telling me that you can get intertwined with a person, and because you think that this is love and you fallen in love with a person and that you've been intimate with a person and all of this stuff, that you can literally be blind from what reality and what is really being shown in your face. Because if I tell you before I go to sleep, I'm not able to do anything if my hands is bound up. And then I wake up and my hands is bound up and there's some people coming through the door to kill me. I'ma know you did it. I'ma know you told them or something. But 3 times prior to this, every time he told her something, he would wake up to this being done to him. But because he lied to her, he could get right up and break out of it or whatever and send them on their way. So it was just crazy to me how he kept allowing that. But I don't know if the Bible doesn't say that he knew and that he was blaming her for it. I guess he did trust her, and love is blind, because he turned right around and ended up telling her the truth and telling her that it was in his hair. So when he did that, that was pretty much kind of like the final straw. So when she cut the hair, the Spirit of the Lord left him. The Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and imprisoned him, making him grind grain like an ox in their dungeon. Over time, his hair began to grow again. During a great Philistine celebration in the temple of Dagon, they brought Samson out to mock him. Blind and humble, Samson prayed to God one last time. Now, once so much stuff happens, God take his hand off a situation and so many things happen, you will cry out to God because it gets overwhelming. It's too much for you to deal with. And sometimes when God is trying to tell you something, or for you to leave a situation, or whatever it is he's telling you to do. And at that point, you cry out to God. Like, his hair started growing back. So the covenant that he had with God was coming back. His hair growing meant the covenant that he had with God. And it started to grow back. So in it growing back, he knew then to call out to God. And it's the same, once you reach that breaking point and you need God, you will cry out and call out to God to help you in the situation that you're in. And that's what he did here, and he cried out to God. They brought Samson out to mock him, blind and humble. Samson prayed to God one last time, asking for his strength to avenge himself. With divine power, he grasped the pillars of the temple and pulled them down, collapsing the structure and killing himself along with thousands of Philistines, thus fulfilling his destiny as a deliverer of Israel, even in death. So, Samson died a martyr, pretty much dying, standing up for what God told him to do, delivering the children of Israel. And reading this particular story, and you can write in the comments if you think something different, or what do you think about it. But sometimes a person can alter their destiny or the plan that God had for their life due to the decisions that they make, because God let us have our own mind to make our own choices. It wasn't God's plan for him to be with the Philistine woman. It wasn't. It was out of Samson's disobedience that he was with the Philistine woman. So he had to suffer the consequences of his actions and his choices. And that resulted in his eyes being gouged out and him being in prison for years. That wasn't God's choice for Samson. He wished that Samson would have reigned for all of those years and delivered the children of Israel a different way, by him reigning with his strength all that time. However, because he got with the Philistine woman, he lost his strength and all of that, and this occurred. Now, God is so just. He could have said, you disobeyed me, so no, I'm not. When your hair grow back, that's new hair. I was in the old hair that you had. That God could have said that. I was in the old hair. So regardless of if some new hair is growing back, that's not the hair you had when we made the covenant. But God didn't do that. And God don't do that to us today. Although we can stray away from God or disobey God, and God telling us to leave away from a person, and we still, tugging on along with them and still trying to, tag along with this person and make stuff work and all of this. God will allow different things to happen so that you can see, like, look, you need to walk away. You need to leave. And that's what he did here. And once you get the strength enough to call on God, God comes. Just like he came for Samson. And he granted Samson what he asked. Now, I don't believe that Samson would have died that way, along with the people that he was to deliver the children of Israel from, the Philistines. That happened due to his disobedience. So he died at that time avenging himself as well as the children of Israel. So it states that the structure collapsed and killing himself along with thousands of Philistines, thus fulfilling his destiny as a deliverer of Israel even in his death. So this was the last story pretty much that was in the book of Judges, and it talked about the last judge in his reign. It says that for 20 years before his downfall, Samson served as a judge for 20 years. So all throughout, and I just mentioned a few judges, and it was 12 altogether. They had a lot of peaceful time, the children of Israel, in the book of Judges. So these were like generations. Generations upon generations. And I think it was generations that would rise up and they would fall into sin. It wasn't the same generation every time. It would be 10 years, 20 years. Then they'll fall back into sin again, and that kind of thing. So it wasn't just a repeated thing with the same generation of people. So I just want that to be known. It would seem as if they would, after God would oppress them and that would happen, they would get it. But how many people know that at times when things is going well and all of that, you can easily get back into your old routine and quickly start backsliding. That's why it is very important to always stay prayerful and develop a prayer life, develop a relationship with God, as well as continuously read your word, because your word is what's going to give you the strength to fight against your flesh, to fight against the thoughts that constantly come to your mind that's making you doubt the word of God, that doubt the things that God has told you, and all of those different things. So it's very important to do those things to help you be able to stay on this journey that God is giving you. The book of Judges, as I stated before, these last couple of books, I couldn't applaud them more. I really thought like these books are so boring, and I was dreading kind of going into them, but they're really the foundation and the blueprint of today's time. I know in my life it is. So I've just been enjoying reading these books. As I stated, my notes have been messed up, but I think the only ones I have to redo over is the book of Ruth, and that is going to be our book for next week, is the book of Ruth. So I know that in my head, so I can get some notes together for it. However, I know it. I bet I've studied it already. But I look forward to next week to see you guys for Faithful Friday. Hopefully I'm not in my robe and my eyes is not bothering me, and I can have a little bit more enthusiasm for next week. But I thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week for Faithful Friday. Have a blessed one.